President Cyril Ramaphosa has delivered the annual State of the Nation address. He did that earlier this week, weighing in on significant issues in South Africa. Let's take a look back at two key issues, that of unemployment, the crisis, and the foundational issues in education. Dr. Deonita Damons, Director at Boston City Campus, joins us now to provide further insights. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening, Tsipisa, and thank you for having me.
So as we mentioned, we want to zone in on the two key points, that of education and unemployment. As we've heard in the country that those two are linked. What were your thoughts, your insights into what the president said this time around?
I think it's important to note that nowadays we have greater access to education than what we had before, and one should recognize that. And unfortunately, although there's greater access, there's also inequality in the type of education that we provide individuals based on their environment and based on their backgrounds. Another key element was the level of unemployment, and not just unemployment of individuals that are underqualified, but also unemployment of individuals that are qualified, which is a greater number of individuals than in our previous terms and decades. But we must understand that we also have a greater number of people entering the job market. And that means there should be greater investment in terms of infrastructure, in terms of economic boosting, but that can't be government on their own. We need the private sector to buy into that as well.
Now, the solutions that have been proffered with regards to education and unemployment, the twin problems, as I mentioned, we've heard for years now that the two have to be aligned. It's been something that's been spoken about, dare I say, for the last decade. Has there been major progress made?
A lot of the interventions that has been put in place by government does assist individuals in finding job opportunities, but that's just what they are, job opportunities. One should ask whether those are long-term investments and long-term solutions to the crisis that we have. And I think this is where education and industry should meet and start forming relationships whereby graduates have an opportunity whilst they're studying or when they finish studying. We have a graduate support plus services where we offer our graduates an opportunity to become work ready, to speak to the industry, and industry can then take lead in terms of who they want in their workplace and how education should be structured to give them the right caliber of person coming into the labor force.
And addressing basic human rights issues of alleviating poverty, the quality of education in South Africa, are we making headway? We have various quintile schools, but is there equilibrium in terms of the quality of education that is being taught at these schools to enable people to actually enter the job market better off and equipped to be able to reach a certain rung of the economic ladder?
I think there's a lot of inequality in terms of the type of education individuals receive, but it's not to say that there's not a will to provide quality education. A lot of the factors that impact on this unequal or unequal education system is systemic, and it goes down to resources, and it goes down to the availability of qualified educators, as well as so far as individuals that are able to go and set up an infrastructure for a proper environment for schooling. So yes, there's unequal education environments, but I don't think it's the will of government to provide unequal education. Unfortunately, resources, background, and environment determine the type and the quality of education you get. And that's a systemic issue. We won't be able to solve it immediately, but over the long term, that is what we should be striving towards.
I'm just thinking now of the foundational space that we're in. We are promoting STEM studies, but if we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, is that something that is mid to long term for South Africa? Because the solutions to the socio-economic issues of unemployment, skills development that we're facing now, and what we have on the table now, is it a gap that we can close anytime soon?
We can't close it immediately. We're too far behind. We're speaking about the fourth industrial revolution, and the whole world is moving on to the fifth. So we should start looking at how can we have short-term, medium, and long-term solutions for our immediate problems. We won't be able to solve it, or we won't be able to turn ourselves into a leader in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, but we can invest in making sure that we produce the right skills at the right time and at specific intervals. But we need all the parties to work together, and all the stakeholders, government, labor, and business, to form a partnership in striving and getting to that point.
I think just looking at the past years of the National Senior Certificate results, there is evidence that it's no longer an issue of better resource schools in terms of the quality of passes from learners who are either from poor backgrounds or even the schools themselves. But what kind of innovative and even better interventions can be made by the private sector, academic institutions, in supporting quality education all round?
I think great investment is in terms of capacitating the educators within that field, and to make sure that the educators that are appointed in these schools are the best caliber candidates for education. But also for private sector to then look at our education and our curriculum and see whether what we're teaching as educators is fit for the work purpose and will be what they will need in today's terms, in tomorrow's terms, and for future positions. Because I think there's sometimes a big gap between what we teach in education and what the industry demands. So there needs to be buy-in or a collaboration with industry in terms of what we teach in schools, and also in terms of investment in schools, to make sure schools are sufficiently resourced so that the child from a school somewhere in a rural area and the child from a school somewhere in Sandton has the same stepping stone when they walk into an interview room.
Just how dire is the picture for South Africa? We've seen a report saying that our literacy levels at the lower levels are dismal, and it's been said, we've seen in a lot of cases of how matriculants are not aptly ready for the tertiary institution level. So what can we fix that is beyond a temporary fix? Because even the quality of our matric pass rate has been scorned as well.
Of course, that has been evident that the competency rate for matric has dropped over the past years, if not over the decade. But I think investment in the foundational phase of education, and that's what the drive at the moment, early childhood development. Investment in the foundational phase provides any learner with a solid ground and a solid backing in terms of going into the world of education, and making sure that the literacy levels improve, that our pass rate improves in matric, and that we build a good solid base of individuals that have got skills in our STEM fields that we are looking for. But it is investment in basic education in terms of early childhood development. And there's a big drive both from the public and the private sector to invest in early childhood development, and making it available for the greater society is even more beneficial to the growth of the literacy levels in South Africa.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Dr. Deonita Damons, Director at Boston City Campus, just speaking to us about some of the challenges faced by the country, particularly in terms of education and unemployment. Now,